Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 55 of the Don't Be Ridiculous podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, say hello, comment, tell us why we're right, why we're wrong. We've got, we're usually plenty of both. It's Sunday night about 7:30 Eastern time. We just watched the Buffalo Bills finish off the Kansas City Chiefs. And, a rematch. It seems like they're probably – that game I think is going to be put on every year now. I think it's going to be the next 10 years. It's going to be an NFL tradition.
Yeah, it's Colts-Patriots. It's the new Colts-Patriots, basically.
But, Buffalo hung on to win 24-20. They got an interception on the last drive from Kansas City to win the game. So, it was a crazy day, NFL. Really great weekend of college football. Yesterday was really, really fantastic, really good games. What do you want to talk about first, Clark? You want to talk about the Chiefs game, or you want to talk about the Dolphins? What do you think?
I guess we could talk about the Dolphins and get it out of the way. So that's their third loss in a row. Tua's coming back next week, which it's kind of funny. We've reached a point where we're like, God, I'm really glad Tua's coming back. It's been the last 3 weeks have just been just not good. Teddy Bridgewater and Skylar Thompson can't seem to stay healthy, and their defense is. I mean, they're 6 games into the season. They started off 3-0, and there was some good stuff. Their defense wasn't necessarily great, but whatever. And then the last 3 weeks, I feel like their defense really hasn't been that good. The offensive line hasn't been that good. Obviously, Tua's been out. They haven't been scoring a lot of points, and it's just been kind of the stuff that we were concerned about coming into the season has all kind of come true. They're not really running the ball that well. Offensive line isn't protecting that well. The defense hasn't been as good as last year. The defense isn't getting turnovers, so
Yeah, I think that the defense played pretty well today. They were all over Minnesota, especially in the first half, and they really made it difficult on you. But as we've said a million times in the NFL, if you can't score, it really doesn't matter how good your defense is. Eventually they're going to get beat. The Dolphins, I think, actually they were winning the time of possession battle. I don't know what it ended up being. But especially in the first half,
they had a chance to win the game. I mean, they were driving pretty well, and they were down 16-10, and then Jalen Waddle fumbled, or he got the ball knocked out. They still, even with all that, they still had a chance to win. So I guess that gives you some hope moving forward. But
yeah, I thought, just watching the game, I just thought the game was completely mismanaged by the head coach. You've got your third string quarterback in there, and I don't understand why, your left tackle's out. I don't understand why they don't put more of a premium on protecting the quarterback. Max protect more, keep a back in to help block, because you're going to have jailbreaks, and that's basically what happened in the game. They kept having either the left tackle, sometimes the right tackle, whatever, somebody would get beat. And that would basically just cost the team. Early in the game, it's third down, they're in field goal range, and they want Skylar Thompson to drop back and pass. And it's why don't you just run a screen pass, or do a running play, do a draw, something quick to, so that way you can just kick a field goal. They didn't do it. Okay, they have the fourth down in their own territory. They try a fake punt, which – again, the game, it's not like the game was out of hand. Minnesota wasn't playing well. It wasn't like, oh, geez, we really got to get on the board because we're in trouble. It felt like Minnesota had 10 points forever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just, I've been a fan of what McDaniel does with the offense, but the game management today I thought was really lacking. And I don't know that there's a scenario where the Dolphins, would have won, but they could have won. If they had given themselves a better chance, they could have won the game. They had the play right before halftime is a perfect example, right? There's 30 seconds to go, right? And instead of just taking a knee and getting into halftime, they try to throw the ball. So they complete one pass, they try to complete another pass, it ends up getting intercepted, and Minnesota gets a field goal. So they gave Minnesota 3 points there. They lost 3 points, earlier because the guy missed a field goal. So it's just, yeah, I just feel like, you've got to be better than that. When your team is struggling and you're on your third quarterback, you've got to use your brain and manage this stuff correctly to give yourself a chance. If they'd have just kept the Dolphins in the game until the third quarter, they could have won.
Yeah.
I do find it funny, though, the Dolphins were down to their only quarterback in 2 games in a row. That's 2 games in a row. We've been down to the only quarterback we have that dressed for the game. It's just, man.
Yeah. So, well, it's just, and I don't want to jump to this conclusion yet, but I mean, the Dolphins are basically, even still, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle had over 100 yards receiving today, which they seem to just do that like automatically almost. But it still feels like the same old Dolphins, and we can talk about this some more. But, there's so many teams that are 3-3 or 2-4, or then there are some 4-2 teams where you're like, I don't know if I really buy this. Everyone, like most of the teams in the league, it's just this. I don't even know what to call it. It's just a jumbled mess of mediocrity. Okay, that's basically what it is. That's what most of the NFL is. There's a few teams on the top, few teams on the bottom, and then just a bunch of mediocrity. So the Dolphins are 3-3. They could win a few games in a row and be 5-3, or end up being 7-4 or 7-5. So it's like you're not really out of it yet, but it's not. For people after the first couple weeks of the season wondering if the Dolphins are like for real or something. No, they're not for real. They're not a championship contending team. They're just like most of the rest of the teams that don't have a truly elite quarterback.
Yeah, and Teddy Bridgewater threw for 300 yards.
Yeah.
He threw for 329 yards in 3 quarters. Like, I think the most disturbing part is that, I think if Bridgewater had actually had a full week of practice, he just got cleared yesterday. So there's no way he took any snaps with the first team. If he'd have had just a week of practice, I think Bridgewater could basically do what Tua is doing. Like, I don't think there's a lot of, I think it's a lot of duplication.
I think you might be able to find a few differences here and there, but I don't think it's that far apart. So, and again, Tua, Teddy Bridgewater's got trouble staying healthy, but so does Tua. So it's kind of, and it's funny because it's like I don't think anyone's made any sort of definitive judgment on him. We kind of have. We don't think he's an elite quarterback. We don't think he'll ever be that. But, like, he's not going to play that. He's going to get hurt. And he gets hurt on a regular basis, so that interrupts any sort of momentum that he would get from playing several weeks in a row and like learning on the job, I guess you could say. So that sort of eliminates that. So then it's like, well, how good can he possibly be? And then the offense, like I said, the offensive line worries me because it's like some of those hits Bridgewater was taking. If Tua takes those hits, I feel like he's going to get hurt. So, I thought Bridgewater was going to get hurt today. So it's like, it just doesn't really bode well, and it's not for the Tua people. It's like, this isn't really encouraging,
Yeah. They have, as we said before the season, like the Dolphins have some key areas that if things happen, they're going to have a hard time. And, we saw it in the last couple weeks, when we had some key defensive players out, then you had Teron Armstead out. Like, when that happens, it's just going to be difficult for them to overcome. I thought, as it's been going the whole season, like, I thought the Dolphins, they run the ball pretty well. They don't do it enough. It seems like they seem to, they don't stick with it.
Yeah, I was thinking that would be more of a focal point of what they were going to do. I understand you have Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, but yeah, they do have some good running backs, and maybe they're having success because they're running, only a little bit, and it sort of throws the defense off a little bit, I guess, maybe. But I would like to see more of that, just to try to establish that and then play off of that. But
yeah. So big game against the Steelers next week. Listen, this can be fixed. The Dolphins are 3-3, not the end of the world. They still have a chance, and the schedule coming up are teams that they're going to be capable of beating. So, there's no Buffalo and Kansas City for a little while. So, they it's in front of them. They can do it, but it's just kind of difficult when your starting quarterback is now just coming back off of injury, and now you need him to play well in order to win. And the Steelers defense played well today. Like they beat Tampa. So, going into the NFL craziness today, so the Jets, the Steelers, the Colts, and the Giants all win, and Tampa, Cleveland, Jacksonville, and Green Bay all lose.
Atlanta won too.
Yeah, that's right. Atlanta beat San Francisco. I forgot about that. So it's like, and I mean, San Francisco's teetering on the edge of too many injuries. Like they're right. They may have had too many injuries at this point. They lost their best corner, their best linebacker. Like they've got, I think 7 out of 11. That was what Mark Schlereth was saying today. 7 out of their 11 starters on defense are injured. So there comes a point where it's like, it doesn't even matter anymore. Like it's like Baltimore last year. You've just had too many injuries and there's no chance. So it's getting to that point with San Francisco. I don't even want to try to figure out who the hell is good. Like I've already planted my flag last week when I said the Jets and the Giants are not going to make the playoffs, and every week I look like an idiot now. so we'll see how this goes, because there's going to be whoever the 7th seed in the NFC is going to be some team that we're like, really? That we don't believe in at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, and I think, did Seattle win? Yeah, Seattle beat the Cardinals. Arizona, I don't know what the hell's going on with them. I don't think Seattle's very good, but, I mean, they're just sort of hanging around that. Like I said, most of the teams, they just sort of hang around 500. And if you do that, you got a shot. So, yeah, the Bucks, like, Colin Cowherd's been on the Bucks, and I'm just like, I'm not really seeing it, dude. And he's like, well, they got some injuries. And I'm like, okay, are you going to start scoring points? And it's like, they scored 18 points today. So...
Yeah, the offense is a real problem. I'm not. It's not the kind of thing where I'm going to give up on them, because I feel like if you give them enough time, they will.
Right.
They'll figure it out, and I think
I'm just like, okay, guys, you need to kind of figure this out. You got a problem here, because if they're not going to score a lot of points, then,
Yeah. Yeah, the defense is still pretty good, but they have some issues. It's kind of similar to the Rams. But the Rams did kind of get right today. They played Carolina, but I think Carolina is a raging dumpster fire. I think every year we have a team that's just, they've fallen off, and they've already fired their coach. Like, I think it's that situation.
Remember when Colin predicted they would win 12 games? Last year? It was last year, right? And it's just no.
Well, it's just hysterical to me. And thank you for leading me into this. It gets back to my point that I've been screaming about for over a year and a half now. Okay. So Carolina, they're like, they get this new owner, like, oh, we're all excited. And then they give Teddy Bridgewater a contract for no reason. Teddy Bridgewater had a nice 4 or 5 game stretch with the Saints. They're like, no, we're going to get Teddy Bridgewater. And they sign him to this contract that is ridiculous. You shouldn't be paying Teddy Bridgewater that much. And after the first year, they're like, yeah, God, Bridgewater just didn't work out. And we're all going, duh. So then instead of just drafting Justin Fields when he was right there to be drafted, they decide, no, we're going to trade for Sam Darnold. Last year, that doesn't work. He throws interceptions like crazy. Then they're like, no, now we're going to trade for Baker Mayfield. That doesn't work either. So again, Carolina, Detroit, Denver. Well, now Denver ended up trading for Russell Wilson, so it didn't matter. But all these teams, listen, Justin Fields doesn't look good, okay? He hasn't, it doesn't look good with Chicago. It could be a problem, whatever. I think you got to give it a little bit more time. But I think if you put Justin Fields with this Carolina team, they would be significantly better than they are now. And I think that's true with any of these teams. I don't understand.
What quarterback looks good on the Bears?
Right. I don't understand how these teams go into a season and they don't have a quarterback and they're like, whatever. Like Washington. Last year, their plan was, we're going to sign Ryan Fitzpatrick. That's your plan?
Yeah.
Like, what? I don't get it. I don't get it at all. And I know, listen, everybody's down on Matt Ryan because of whatever, but the Colts are 3-2-1. So, I don't believe in the Colts as a team, not at all. I don't, but Matt Ryan's serviceable.
Yeah.
Like, a serviceable quarterback is worth a lot.
Well, the other thing is, like, I think people need to be, like, when you're trying to make judgments about teams, particularly teams where they've got a new coach or something, you need to look, like, for instance, Nathaniel Hackett. If you do some research on some of the hires that he was trying to make or the hires that he ended up making before the season or in the offseason, you'll kind of be like, does this guy know what the hell he's doing? And then I was reading something today about Matt Rule. He was a coach at Temple University, their football team, and so he started just bringing in ex-players who he coached at Temple in college, just all over the place. And it feels to me like, and I could be wrong with this, I don't have any sourcing on this, but it feels to me like he's one of these college coaches who just said, well, I got a system, and any quarterback I bring in, I can get him to run it, it'll be fine. And it's like, dude, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. So that's one of those things whenever you hear somebody praising a new coach or something, it's like, do some research and see. Like in Urban Meyer, we were kind of, especially you were like, I don't think this guy's going to be a good NFL coach, and you were right on the money just because based on some different moves and things that we heard about in that first offseason. So that's just one of those things to watch out for, not just with college coaches, but with just any new coach in the NFL. Like, does this guy know what the hell he's doing?
I think you're right on about that. I was concerned about Urban Meyer because he was having trouble making it through a college season, like physically and emotionally. And you know what? Honestly, now that I've had time to kind of revisit it, I'm not hiring Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer's a train wreck. Every place he leaves is a disaster. Okay, University of Florida, he left there. They had all these players arrested. The whole thing turned into a mess. He goes to Ohio State. They should have gotten rid of him after the situation with the coach happened, where he had the coach who was, beating up his wife, and he was like not telling anybody about it and all of that. And they had to suspend him and all this nonsense. Every school he leaves, it's a mess when he leaves there. Same thing, Jacksonville Jaguars. He wasn't even there the full season. It's a disaster. So disaster follows this guy everywhere he goes. Like 10 years ago, okay, we could talk about Urban Meyer. Now I wouldn't hire him with a 40-foot pole. Like, I think obviously the NFL is not going to hire him because of what a failure he was in Jacksonville. But if I was a college team, I wouldn't hire this guy. He's just a disaster. Like, it's over. Like, he had a nice run. Let him go be on television and do whatever. It's fine. But
hire Matt Rule for college. He seems like a college coach.
Yeah, I agree. But I also think the Carolina Panthers owner is a moron. I mean, he still owes Matt Rule $40 million. Like, he went completely crazy on this. We got to get this coach and we got to pay him all this money instead of just get the right guy and don't worry about, So yeah, that's a bit of a situation in Carolina. And I don't know how it's going to get fixed. They're talking about trading Christian McCaffrey now. Like if you probably didn't see it because I was watching Red Zone. Robbie Anderson, they kicked him off the field today. They kicked him out of the game. Like, they're like, go to the locker room. He was too busy arguing with the coaches, and the new head coach basically sent him out. So yeah, that's a whole mess. Anyway, but so I just wrote down a couple of notes. So it looks like the Cleveland Browns have already fucked up their season. They lose. I mean, Cleveland just, good Lord. They lose the Jets game. They should never have lost the Jets game. That Falcons loss is terrible. Today they get their ass kicked by Bailey Zappi and the New England Patriots. It's just, I think it's done for. I don't think it's going to matter when Deshaun Watson comes back. I think they'll already be out of it. It's kind of what it looks like. Do we believe in the Jets or the Giants?
I don't believe in the Jets. The Giants, as a team that could make the playoffs, well, they're 5-1 now. So I think you got just mathematically, they got a shot at making the playoffs. Are they like a real, no. I think it looks like Brian Daboll knows what he's doing as a head coach, because they're playing to their strengths. Today, they beat the Ravens. The Ravens they've got their own issues to kind of figure out. So, yeah, I don't really, the Jets, they're the Jets. You're 4-2. Okay, you could be 4-4 in 2 weeks, and then it doesn't really matter. So,
Yeah, I mean the Giants held the Ravens to 20 points. That's significant. That's no joke. And the Jets kicked the shit out of the Packers today. That wasn't even close to a game. Packers could do 0 on offense. So, I gotta give Robert Saleh credit. I know he's hanging on to the receipts, but I gotta give him credit. I can't imagine they're gonna beat. It's like same thing. I don't know how you beat good teams like this, but the Giants beat the Ravens today. It's like, that means something.
Well, how good are the Ravens though? That's one of my questions, because Lamar Jackson, he's had some really good games, and then he's had some other, like today, just and then he has the turnover late in the game. I mean, I don't. They're 3-3 now. Like they had a close game against the Bengals. They should have beaten the Dolphins, and they blew that game. So yeah, I'm kind of I'm not really liking a lot of what I'm seeing. I mean, I guess they're still, again, they're 3-3, so they're in the mix. But it's just in terms of them being an elite team, I don't really see it yet. So,
yeah, I think they have some holes, but I think that's a pretty nice win by the Giants. The Bengals were able to pull out the win against the Saints today, but they were behind most of the game. Are you concerned about the Bengals a little bit at this point?
Are they 3-3?
Yeah.
Of course they are, because because like 70% of the league is 3-3.
Right. Right. Exactly.
I mean, I guess it's early. Like if you're 3-3, even if you're 2-4 at this point, you're still kind of in it. You're hanging right around 500. So yeah. I mean, I guess it's a little concerning. But Burrow he had 4 touchdowns today.
Yeah. No, the offense is figuring it out. Like they played well. Jamar Chase was unbelievable. So they have the offense is getting better, but they're that Baltimore game was, I don't know that it was disturbing. That was just kind of one of those things that could have gone either way. And I think that's what's happened to Cincinnati. They had a bunch of either way games. That game with Dallas could have gone either way. The game with Baltimore could have gone either way. So we'll see. But it seems like they're getting there. They seem like they're getting better every week. And it's hard. Listen, it's hard to win on the road. Especially, New Orleans is that's not an easy place to win. But I do, I am a little concerned, but it's not, again, nothing's frightening because it's not like there's anybody out there running away with it other than Buffalo.
Other than Buffalo, yeah. Do you want to talk about the Buffalo, the Bills, and the Chiefs?
Yeah. That was a real, that was a tough game. Like, it was not, we were expecting like a shootout like we got the playoff game last year or back in January. But yeah, so it was it was touch and go. Like it was it was tough to score. It was tough to move the ball down the field. The Chiefs only had 20 points. That's a pretty nice job when you can go on the road and beat Kansas City like that. I don't think either team is as explosive as they were. I also think that they've learned kind of how to play each other a little bit. That kind of happens.
I still think the Bills are explosive, but these two teams are familiar with each other, so it's going to be harder to do that. I mean, they had those 2 long touchdown passes, so
Yeah, I do think that Buffalo's defense, I see it making a little bit of a difference now, especially having Von Miller.
Right.
They can generate a pass rush, even though Mahomes gets away from it most of the time. But they can cause some problems, and I think Buffalo having the better defense is kind of what won them the game today. But yeah, and then, is Buffalo going to be able to run the ball when they need to? I mean, that's not true. They can run the ball when they need to. It's just, can they run it consistently? Can that be something that they can lean on?
Can someone else besides Josh Allen run it consistently well,
Right.
Yeah, and we were before we started the podcast, we were laughing because Nick Wright on First Things First, when he does his NFL tiers, ranking the teams, we're just like, he's going to find some way to put the Chiefs above the Bills. I could be wrong on that. He may end up ranking the Bills there, but he'll do it begrudgingly, and he'll make some sort of he'll find some way to like get some dig in at Josh Allen or something, and just to be like Mahomes is better than him. So whatever.
No, and listen, I said it before we came on. Okay, that's the last 3 times Buffalo's played Kansas City in Kansas City. Okay, 2 out of 3 they've won. The one they didn't win, they probably should have won. And the one game that was a blowout, Buffalo blew them out. So that's 3 games in a row on your field. Buffalo's really been the better team. So, that doesn't mean Kansas City can't win the Super Bowl. Of course they can. But it's just if you're down on the Buffalo Bills and everyone before the season acting like Buffalo shouldn't really be the favorite. I mean, why are they the favorite? And I'm just like, I mean, you can complain about that if you want, but they just went into Kansas City and beat them again. So, maybe the professional gamblers know what they're talking about when they made Buffalo the favorite. Just saying.
Yeah.
I know everybody thinks they're really smart. Yeah, so I said before, I'm not going to try to figure out who's good. I mean, look, obviously Buffalo and Kansas City are good. I don't need to debate. That's not up for debate, and we don't need to talk about that. In the NFC, Minnesota's 5-1. Do I think they're really good? Nah, not really. So the rest of it, and Philadelphia's a good team. I'm still not.
I need to see more from Philadelphia. To
Right.
me, I'm still a little bit the jury's out because Jalen Hurts has obviously gotten better. I need to see more. And if they beat the Cowboys, I'm like, okay, but that doesn't. The Cowboys to me have a good defense, and their offense is fine. It's not unbelievable. And even when Dak Prescott comes back, I don't think their offense is going to be unbelievable. So it's just hard to. But look, you can't. It's on some level you are what your record says you are. Okay? And so if the Eagles if the Eagles beat the Cowboys, then they're still undefeated and they're what, 6-0? 7?
If the Eagles, if they win tonight, they'll be 6-0.
You're 6-0, it's like, okay, well, if you just win 5 more games, that's 11 wins already. So it's like you're kind of you've put yourself in a really, really good position. So, we'll see.
Yeah. So, all right. So, should be a good Cowboys-Eagles game. Anything else we want to talk about NFL-wise?
There wasn't any sort of going for it on 4th down decisions that I was, that we were irritated about this week, I guess. That's an ongoing thing that we're kind of watching. I did read an article today about someone complaining about this debate. He's like, well, the teams have more information than you do. And I'm like, I guess, but it's just kind of, well, as the season goes on, we'll talk about more of those things. And, because there just wasn't anything really egregious this week.
The problem, as I see it, is the people who make the important decisions, like owners, they don't make decisions based on what your percentages were. They make decisions based on whether you won or lost. That's what this comes down to. So all the analytics people, your argument stops when we get to the win-loss argument, okay? Because your job will be judged on whether you win or lose, not whether you were right about the percentages. So, we can do, and yes, it is somewhat of a stupid debate, but people's jobs are being decided on calls like this. So that's why it's not a stupid debate.
Well, no, I think to me, I was reading it and I'm just like, okay, so you're saying they have more information than I do, and I'm criticizing it after the fact, and you're saying, well, and the article was saying, they're like, well, you don't know if it's going to work out or not. It's like, whatever you do, it might not work out. It's like, well, yeah, that's true, but, there's times where I just see stuff where it's like, why don't you just kick the field goal and take the points? And I feel like people are like, well, then your percentage of winning goes up, whatever, and it's like, some of these situations, it's kind of, it can go either way. But, other times it's like, I really think you should just kick. And they're like, well, but if you kick the field goal there and you don't, you could go for a touchdown there and that'll do this and this and this. But if you kick the field goal, you're still in the game. You might still win it. Like, it's not like it's the end of the world. So, again, there'll be probably more egregious decisions later on in the season, or maybe something tonight or tomorrow. But there wasn't anything this week so far that I was like, oh, what an idiot for going for it there.
Well, and every situation, and by the way, every situation is its own entity. You can't take universal numbers and apply them to every situation. You have to take every situation individually for what it is, right? In the NFL, it's just one game at a time. All that matters is the decision you make in that one game that you're in to win it. Like,
well, and here's one that I'll give you today. So the Chiefs were down, or excuse me, the Bills were down 7-3, and they drove down, and it got to 4th and goal from like the 2 or something. a 2 or 3 yard line. I would have kicked the field goal there, make it 7-6. You're only down by 1 point. If they score a touchdown, you can go down, score a touchdown, and get a 2-point conversion and tie the game. It's still the first half. So I would have gone for it there. They didn't, I would have kicked the field goal there. They went for it. They didn't get it. Now, granted, the receiver fell down, so it almost worked, So, but they ended up winning the game. Not that big of a deal. And then in the fourth quarter, the Bills have the ball, and they get to a fourth down in their own side of the field, and they decide to go for it. But it's late in the game. That's fine. There's other situations where I'm like, I don't think you should be going for it in your own side of the field. That one I'm okay with because the game really is on the line there. So,
well, it's also it's also different. Who's my quarterback? Who's their quarterback? Right? If I've got Josh Allen, like you texted me that during the game, and I was like, yeah, but if you have Josh Allen, I don't know that it matters that much. I don't know that it's just not. It's a different decision, right? The Dolphins today, when you're faking a punt in your own territory, right? Like, what are you doing? Even getting the first down doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
And because of that, they lost the field position battle. And in that game, field position really mattered because nobody could score. So you have to, those decisions are based on the game that you're in, the situation, who's my quarterback, who's their quarterback. There's so much more involved than just, well, these are the percentages.
Right.
People act like
I think it's an intellectually lazy position for some people to say, well, I mean, you're criticizing it because it didn't work. Okay, sometimes that's true, but I'm not just criticizing stuff because it doesn't work. I'm looking at the process of it, and then I'm also looking at the situation and going, sometimes why don't you just kick the damn field goal? What are you doing? But
when you and I say these things, we're saying it regardless of what you choose to do and the outcome is. We're saying what we think you should do. Like in the so Notre Dame was playing Stanford, right? Don't ask me why I'm still watching Notre Dame because they're terrible. But regardless, they're playing Stanford. They're having a hard time scoring in the first quarter of the game. They get the ball. They're down inside the 10-yard line, and it's fourth down. And instead of they try to get it's 4th and 2, and Notre Dame's struggling offensively. They go for it. They don't get it. If they'd have just kicked that field goal, they lose the game. At the end of the game, they lost by 2 points. So, these things really, really matter. That's the thing in the NFL. Unless you're, like I said, you're the Chiefs of the Bills and you have Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, unless you have a quarterback like that, right? These games come down to a possession here, a possession there, a call here, a call there. So that's my point. When these games are decided by that small of a margin, you're better off taking the higher percentage play, which is kicking the field goal. Regardless of what anybody says, the higher percentage play in all these situations is making the field goal to get 3 points.
Yeah, well, and then there was in the Bama, I guess we'll move on to college football, but in the Bama-Tennessee game, you were saying Bama shouldn't have kicked that long field goal because then that gave Tennessee a short field to kick a field goal to win the game.
Yeah, so let's discuss that. So it is my feeling, and I got this from Michael Lombardi, used to be worked in the Cleveland Browns front office when Bill Belichick was there, worked for the Raiders, worked for the Patriots. And now he's on the GM Shuffle podcast, and he's got a bunch of different things that he does in TV shows. And so his argument has always been a missed field goal is a turnover. It's no different. They're the same thing. You're giving basically you have the ball and you're giving the team the ball right where you had it. And especially in terms of a field goal, you're giving them the ball 7 yards back from where you had it because they get the ball from where you kicked it.
Yeah.
So and I had the same, by the way, I said the same thing a few years back when Alabama was playing Auburn. Okay. They went for a long field goal. It was over 40 yards. And I was like, this is a bad idea. Don't kick this. They kicked it. The kick was short. Auburn returned the kick, the missed field goal for a touchdown. Now that's a rare thing, right? I wasn't expecting them to return it. But I said that was a bad play because, again, you're probably the likelihood of you making it is not good, and if you miss it, you give the team the ball right there. So as soon as that happened, when he lined up the kick, I was like, it was 50 yards. I was like, this is a bad idea. I was watching the game with my dad, and I said that this is a bad idea. And then he missed it, and my dad says, "Well, they're going to overtime." I said, "No, they just lost the game."
Well, how
And
much
they
time
did.
was that? It was like 20 seconds.
Yeah, 20 seconds, but Tennessee had 2 timeouts.
That's the other thing, guys. You got to remember in college and the pros, like 20 seconds. I mean, depending on where you are in the field, that's enough time to get into field goal range.
Right.
Like, especially in college, because they'll stop the clock like after a first down.
Especially when you're getting the ball at your own 40.
Yeah.
They didn't have to go that far, and they had 2 timeouts, so they could throw the ball anywhere they wanted. I said they just lost the game, and that's exactly what happened.
Here's a counter argument to that. I understand what you're saying, and the argument's not flawed, but here's a counter argument. Okay, overtime in college football is kind of nuts. Okay, I mean it can go on and on and on. So it's kind of a thing where you're like, all right, do I want to take my chances in overtime where I got to keep scoring and try to get a stop? Or do I want to? Because if they make that field goal, then they get to kick the ball off, and I don't know that Tennessee is going to be able to get into any sort of field goal range.
It wouldn't matter. They would have had to get a touchdown. Oh no, you're right. Right,
no,
you're right.
Well,
It would have been up 3.
Just to
They would have
extend
been
the
up
game.
3. You're right. I apologize. You're right. Yeah, they would have been up 3.
Right. So if they made it, and remember, he kicked it long enough. I think he just pushed it right. Right.
Right.
Yeah. So he kicked it long enough. So I guess maybe Nick Saban was thinking, here's my chance to try to win the game right now. So that I don't necessarily have that big of a problem with. If the field goal was closer, I would have even less of a problem with it. But, yeah, I mean, that's just it's tough. I mean, especially like they scored 49 points and they lost the game. It's like,
well, and it's not like the Alabama kicker is Justin Tucker. He had missed 2 field
football. That's true.
It's college football. He missed 2 field goals the week before. Alabama, I mean, in the time Saban's been there, they haven't had a very good field goal kickers for the most part. Like I just went back to a situation where the guy missed the kick, and it cost them the game. So it's not like they had a really reliable field goal kicker there. So that plays into the argument too. But
I think I'm gonna side with you on this one then, just because it is college. So with a field goal kicker in college, it's kind of like, you know what, if you punt the ball there and pin them deep, they're probably not going to be able to get a field goal to try to win the game, and then you go into overtime. Which, crazy as it is, maybe that's a better opportunity for you to win the game than trying to do a long field goal. Because if they were going to try to win it in regulation, they had to make that field goal. That was the only shot, really. So, yeah, I think I'm going to side with you on that one.
Yeah, I just thought it was a mistake. I just think it's, unless it's if you have a really reliable field goal kicker, different story, right? I just felt like the odds of him making that weren't great. I just felt like that's going to be a tough situation. You're on the road. That's a tough kick to make. 50 yards is a long way. I don't care who you are. But anyway, so yeah, let's talk about that. So Alabama, Tennessee, that was you want to talk about a shootout. That was insane. What happened. But I think, and I watched that game and I just feel like my point from last week is proven even more. Alabama's a good team with a great quarterback. Without Bryce Young, they're not average. They're probably above average, but they're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere near the national championship without him. Their defense was getting torched. Like they could not cover those guys. They had a really hard time slowing down Tennessee at all, let alone stopping them. So it just I feel like, now granted, Alabama was really sloppy. They had 15 penalties or something like that. So we see, but again, we go back to this. We see this in these road games. Like they're playing these games on the road and they're struggling. It's like it's totally different animal when you have to go on the road and try to beat somebody.
Yeah.
They played Texas on the road. They played Tennessee on the road. They were really sloppy and had a whole bunch of penalties.
Yeah.
And they were really sloppy last week against Texas A&M, and that game was at home. So, yeah, I felt like that was, that was obviously the game of the day. I think, I already said it, without Bryce Young, forget it. And I think that, what Colin Cowherd has been saying about Alabama is true, that, Georgia's probably taken a handful of guys that probably would have gone to Alabama. They're probably getting a couple of those. Texas A&M is probably taking a couple of those, right? I think USC is going to be taking a couple of those guys. So,
well, and I think once they move to and here's the thing, and Joel Klatt was talking about this, and I agree with him. Once they move to the 12-team playoff, I think there's going to be a situation where there's going to be some guys on like Georgia or Alabama, or guys who are thinking of going to Georgia or Alabama, or whoever the top 3-4 teams are. They're thinking of going there, and they might be like, I might have to back somebody up for a couple years. Well, when they move to a 12-team playoff, does it make more, with the NIL money, does it make more sense for me to go there and wait? Or should I go to one of these other teams that could get into the playoff and play, like now, you know?
Well, I think, especially for quarterback, you're absolutely right. That's already happening.
And
guys are not.
That's probably the most important position there, right? So
guys are not waiting around to, oh well, I'll wait behind this guy. Nobody's doing that anymore.
Now there's a transfer portal too,
right? They're just transferring. So the Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers was playing for Ohio State. They're like, oh, we're going to play C.J. Stroud. He's like, okay, I'm going to Texas.
Gone. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, you're going to have. I think that's probably the transfer part of it. I think is accurate. Guys are not going to wait to play anymore.
Yeah,
that's 100% true. But is Alabama going to lose guys to other teams because of the I don't know.
I think it's more of a depth thing. I don't think it's like they're going to lose all those frontline guys, but maybe the depth gets affected because the guys are going to be like, I don't want to wait to back somebody up. I'll just go here to this school, which could also get into the playoff once it moves to 12 teams. So,
yeah, that's true. Because you watch Alabama, they're not the same. The wide receivers, they don't have like a superstar wide receiver. Now maybe listen, the run they were on with receivers, you can't keep that up, right? There's no way you can continue to have first round wide receivers all the time. So the wide receivers are pretty good, right? But it's not the same elite level. They don't have elite defensive backs. They have some issues, and it's like, and I wrote down in my notes here, this is the year we really needed a 12-team playoff. Because everybody's kind of smushed together a little more. Like, this would be really fun.
Yeah, in the SEC, I mean, Alabama's still a really good – they're still a good team. Georgia's really good. Tennessee's really good. Ole Miss is still ranked. They're like 7th.
Right.
They're all really good. So, and then you think about it, LSU, you think they're going to get things figured out and be really good next year. They won again yesterday, though, I think.
Yeah, they beat Florida, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. I think that the teams that are at the top, right, the Georgia, Alabama, they're not as good as they were last year. Georgia's defense is not on the same level. Now, how could it be? Like, the whole team got drafted in the NFL. So, of course, it can't be, right? So, yeah, I feel like this is a really interesting year. So, going through a couple more of the games that I thought were really fun. TCU played Oklahoma State, went into double overtime. That was it was pretty crazy. Now TCU is the only undefeated team left in the Big 12, which who called that at the beginning of the season?
Yeah,
that's insanity. So now they have a tough schedule down the stretch. They got to play Kansas State and Texas, and so we'll see how it goes. But they're and like the other thing I think is cool right now. Every conference still has a shot. UCLA is still undefeated in the Pac-12. TCU in the Big 12. Obviously, the SEC and Big 10. Clemson is still undefeated in the ACC. So
it seems like Clemson is. It seems like that quarterback has figured things out and is good now. So it seems like Clemson should be.
Yeah,
they have project them to win the ACC again.
Yeah, definitely. They're definitely in good shape to go undefeated and win the ACC. Yeah, they've definitely turned a corner. It's not elite level. It's not like crazy offense. They're not elite level, but it's very good. And I think that Clemson and Georgia being balanced the way they are from offense and defense, that I think will be interesting to watch as we go forward. The Utah USC game, that was incredible. Went down to the end. So here's another controversial decision for you. So Utah gets it's 42 to 35. That's right,
this 2-point conversion. Yeah.
Utah scores to make it 42-41. Now the game is in Utah. I think there was like 40 seconds left. So Utah goes for 2. The quarterback runs it in, and then they stop USC at the end. And it was like, oh man, but that situation in a game like that where you haven't stopped USC the whole game, like there's no you can't stop them. So it's like, all right, why not take a swing at it? Again, Utah was lighting it up.
I'm fine. It's a 2-yard play. If you get that, now again, that doesn't guarantee you're going to win the game because they still had 40 seconds and they could have maybe gone down and kicked a field goal. But the thing is, it's like okay, if you just kick the extra point, they could go down and win the game. Okay, now if you go for 2, maybe you win the game, maybe you don't. But if you kick the extra point, like you're probably going to overtime or you're losing the game. So it comes down to one play, and it's like, well, if we do this, maybe we can win the game. So, you know what? I'm okay with that. Go for it.
Yeah, they put pressure on USC to do something, and it made it really difficult. To try to get
the other side of that is, well, if you miss that, then you lose the game. All right, well, you may have still lost it if you kick the extra point. So, I can live with that.
And I also think, if Utah was undefeated, I don't know if they make the same decision or not.
That's a good point.
The fact that they were 4-2 and we're like, you know what, we got to go for it because this is our last shot to win the Pac-12. We've got to swing. We got to go after this. Because they still only have one conference loss. So, I think that, but that made it that was a really awesome game, and the crowd in Utah was insane. Like that was nuts. So, the other one, Michigan versus Penn State. I mean, yes, we have to talk about this. I think, I've been kind of iffy on Michigan the whole time. And I watched the game, and Penn State's up 17-16 in the third quarter, and then Michigan kind of takes over. So, look, what concerns me about Michigan is, yes, they can run the ball, and that's what they want to do. I get that. But the problem is, are you going to come across somebody that slows that down at all or put you in a position where you're down by 10 points and you have to do something to come back? Michigan ran the ball 55 times in that game. Like, I would really love every game to be that way. It'd be great if you could just hand the ball off all the time. But that's going to be really hard to do. As I think I sent this to you that Michigan had 17 completions for 145 yards. Like, that's going to be tough to beat good teams like that. It's going to be tough to beat good teams that are athletically in your class when that's the case. So, listen, I think Michigan is a good team, not debating that. But when we're talking about are they going to get into the playoff, I don't know. That's a tough deal. That's a tough deal. But I feel like I kind of know. I know what Michigan wants to do, but I'm still kind of iffy on how good they are, and I don't think we're going to know based on the rest of the games on their schedule until they play Ohio State.
Right, and Ohio State's got a legit offense, and we'll see if they can keep up with them. That's obviously. And look, let's just put it this way: Michigan, you have not earned the benefit of the doubt. Ohio State, I'll give them more credit because I've seen them do. And by the way, make no mistake about it. Whether people are talking about the polls or they're talking about the College Football Playoff Committee, what you've done in years past, how your program has been, that factors into it when they're talking about who do we think are the best 4 teams. So,
right,
Yeah,
I mean, the only good thing is Michigan's going to get the chance to prove it. It's not like they're. We're never going to know anything because, it's not their fault that half the Big Ten isn't any good.
Right.
I think, but that being said, maybe the next 4 or 5 weeks, can they get better every week? Can Harbaugh make J.J. McCarthy? Can they, what confuses me about them is they're so good at running the ball, but they never drop back, play action, and then try to take deep shots. I don't understand that. Why wouldn't you do that? That's the whole point of being able to run the ball is, you can then, quick strike, when the other team's not ready for it. So it's just kind of confusing. Now we'll see. Maybe in the next 3 or 4 weeks they can get better at it, but they're really going to have to legitimately get better at it in order for them to beat Ohio State, make the playoff, do all the things that they want to do. But, all right. So I wrote down, my top 5. I've got Georgia, Ohio State, Tennessee, Clemson, and then Michigan, Alabama. But it's kind of difficult because Alabama's not out of it. The only big thing is now that Alabama cannot lose one of these other SEC games. They got to play Mississippi State next week. They got to play at LSU. They got to play Ole Miss. If they lose one of those other games, then they're out.
Yeah,
they're going to be out. They're not going to be able to make the the SEC championship game. So we'll see. But we got Georgia, Tennessee coming up in a couple weeks.
Yeah, that's really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So by the way, just real quick, I'll just say this.
Yes.
I don't have a problem with Tennessee people rushing the field and taking down the goalposts. That's fine. But from what I heard, they took the goalposts out of the stadium and threw them into the river. Okay? Seriously, come on. There's a bunch of fish hanging out in there. They don't care about any of this. Why are you throwing a goalpost into a river? Like, come on. Anyway.
That's college football for you. At West Virginia, they burn couches. At Tennessee, they throw goalposts into the river.
Come on. And in South Florida, when the Miami Heat win the championship, it's pots and pans. I'm fine with that. Don't be throwing stuff in the river. Come on. Anyway.
Yeah, that was one of those things. Unbelievable atmosphere. Tennessee has not won a game like that big.
Tennessee's been bad for a while. Now it looks like they're pretty good. It looks like Josh Heupel? I think it looks like he's pretty good. So
yeah, no, that's really cool. I feel bad for Texas and Oklahoma. Because Texas, if you're struggling with Iowa State, good luck in the SEC.
Yeah,
that's all I can say.
You got a few more years left till you make the move. So
because oh man, like I don't know how they're going to beat anybody. Anyway, all right, so that's it for football. So NBA season starts, I believe, on Tuesday.
Okay.
So let's put our NBA caps on. I'm really excited for the season. I feel like this season's just got a lot of teams involved, a lot of teams that could, that have a shot at it this year. So I feel like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So I just wrote down some questions, just kind of looking at NBA preview stuff. So is there any better unintentional comedy team than the Brooklyn Nets?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, the Nets and the Lakers, are just going to be it's comedy gold. There's
Lakers, a whole. Are they going to trade Westbrook before the deadline? Is that the strategy now?
It's beyond. I don't know what the deal is. It's beyond strategy at this point. I don't know why they don't just send him home. Just send him home, or buy him out. You can't. This is not going to go well. There's no way you can't be a productive team with this guy out there. It's funny. It's sad when Patrick Beverley has to be the guy in your team to bring people together.
Yeah, that's a little odd.
What is going on? And there's a whole article on ESPN I read today about Kyrie Irving, giving a whole thing that he still thinks he's going to get a huge contract after this year's up. He still believes it, and Ben Simmons is leaning on Kyrie for his tutelage. I mean, it's just too much. I read this article that Kyrie gives these long-winded answers about how, life is beautiful and how we all have to, do our part and all of this nonsense. And, it sounds all very nice, but I read this about Ben Simmons leaning on Kyrie, and I just went, please let them keep everybody. Let them just keep this whole team together.
And the funniest part about this is, look, if Durant, Kyrie, and Ben Simmons play, we've criticized Ben Simmons a bunch. He's a really good defensive player, and if he's on transition or something like that, he's still really good. So the funny thing is, if they're all playing, they're probably going to win a lot of games. Too.
Exactly right. As our good buddy Ryan Russillo said, just play in the basketball games, and everything will probably work out. But they won't. I'm telling you right now, something will happen. And, everybody, the other thing with Kyrie Irving is something's going to happen this year. All these guys get hurt. Kyrie Irving gets hurt more often, but Durant's getting hurt now. Ben Simmons was hurt last year. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to miss games because of something, and it's amazing. So yeah, I think the Nets are number one in unintentional comedy. Lakers are probably right behind them. But if they move Russell Westbrook, it kind of, I don't know, it's not really the same anymore. But, I don't want to go into a whole thing on the Lakers documentary on here, but, watch the Lakers documentary. You'll see what they're made of.
Yeah, if you want a little bit of basketball stuff, and then you just a lot of family drama with the Bus family, which I don't really care about. Sorry, it's just kind of there's a lot of stuff in there. I'm like, I really don't want to, And then
Yeah,
I'm
it's
just
really
like, I don't necessarily want to moralize here, but I did think it was kind of interesting that it seemed like throughout the documentary, Jeannie Buss is talking about how she kept wanting to be taken seriously, right? And then she poses in Playboy. I mean, in the '90s or whatever it was. So, whatever. Anyway, I don't want to moralize, but
yeah. Anyway, so back to real basketball.
Yes, exactly.
All right, so let's go conferences. Like, all right, what team are you looking forward to? Let's go. All right, Eastern Conference. What team are you really interested to see this year? What's your number one?
I guess. I mean, to be honest, I guess Cleveland. I mean, Milwaukee's going to be good. Giannis is really good. Philadelphia, we're unsure about. That'll be. I guess that's sort of interesting to see, or if it all just kind of blows up like it always seems to. But Cleveland, that should be interesting. They look like a really good young team. They got Donovan Mitchell, so we'll see how that plays out. Beyond that, I mean, obviously we're Heat fans, so I'll be watching that. But I just don't. I feel like the Eastern Conference got better, and I don't feel like the Heat got much better, if at all. So I just kind of feel like the last this past year and then 2 years ago in the bubble was fun, but I don't really see that happening again.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens with the Heat. As always, there's going to be one team that does worse than we think because of whatever situation, injuries or whatever. But yeah, I have Cleveland on the list of my teams. I'm really fascinated by it. I just want to point out that Cleveland is projected to have 47 wins, and the Bulls are projected to have 41. So, I think Cleveland's going to be really good. I think they're going to be a top 6 team, and I think I don't think that they're championship ready or anything, but that's a team that I'm really interested to see because they could get a whole lot better from the beginning of the season to the end, and that I think is going to be really interesting. Obviously, yeah, Eastern Conference. I believe in Milwaukee the most. And then it's kind of a toss-up between Philly and Boston.
Still, I believe in Milwaukee up to a point, and it's like, it's not like they're just totally blowing people away. Giannis is basically unstoppable, but the rest of it's kind of, hopefully they get enough contributions from everybody else. But
right. Yeah, in the West, I think the Warriors are still at the top of the mountain, but I'm a Denver guy. I'm a Denver guy, not a Clipper guy. I think Denver could be. First of all, Jokic plays pretty much every game, so as a regular season team, they're going to be awesome, regardless of anything that happens. Like, they're just going to be awesome. And if I get a full season of Jokic, Jamal Murray, and Aaron Gordon, like, that's a really good team. And then if they get Michael Porter Jr. back at any time this season, like, I don't even care if he plays until March or April. If they get him back for the playoffs, they have a chance to be scary good. And yes, I know the defense with Jokic out there, you can complain about it. I get it. But they got Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. They got Bruce Brown. I feel like they improved their team where they needed to. And to me, that's a team that I'm super excited about that I think could be a problem for a team like the Warriors.
Right. The Clippers, I just, do they have the potential? I mean, maybe, but remember, if anyone's basing that, if they're saying that they think the Clippers are going to be really good, they're basing that on what? Basically, 2 years ago in the playoffs, it seemed like they had figured some stuff out, and they came back in the Mavericks series, and then it was 2-2 against the was it Utah? Yeah, it was Utah. It was 2-2 against Utah, and it looked like they had everything figured out, and then Kawhi got hurt. But then Paul George actually played pretty well the rest of the playoffs into the Western Conference Finals. But it's like, okay, that was 2 years ago, guys. You don't just pick up right where you left off. So I need to see them sort of get back to what they had figured out there, and I don't know if that's going to happen or not. There's too many questions, So, that remains to be seen. I mean, I guess you put the Warriors there. Dallas, did Dallas add anybody or anything?
Christian Wood, they got. It's kind of like a small ball center type. But
Yeah.
no, they really didn't add anything. I mean, Tim Hardaway will be playing because he was out last year.
Right. So, we'll see if that's enough. It's a lot of it's really based on what Luka can do because he's a ball dominant player and he's kind of in control of what's going on. And they don't have Jalen Brunson, so.
Right. Yeah. I think, Dallas is going to, Luka's going to be trying to carry them. They need to, they're in position to make a trade. That's what they're going to need. The team as constituted. I think the West is too difficult. Back to what you said about the Clippers though. Yeah. I just don't know how you can trust the Clippers. Like, at this point, Kawhi and Paul George have a lot of miles on them. They've both had a lot of surgeries, a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I don't have a reservoir of I see what they're talking about now and they can just do that. It
feels to me like the bubble year and then the year after that was kind of their shot. And it's just the thing in the NBA is it's not like it just keeps going and you keep having a window that's open. It's not, and that's the other thing too with Milwaukee, like, are they still going to get enough from everybody else, enough 3-point shooting and enough defense and stuff from everybody else? Right. That's somewhat of a question. It's not, you're not just a championship contender forever, so.
Right. Yeah. Let's see. We already talked about the Cavaliers. How much do you think the Celtics coaching issues are going to affect them? Now, I said coaching issues. Yeah.
Yeah. Coaching issue. I think that's going to matter a lot. Because it seemed like he gave them the identity that they needed for a while, and they had figured out how they have to play. So, you can say, well, the other players can hold everybody accountable, and it's like, okay,
they weren't doing that before. Yeah, they weren't doing that before Udoka got there. So yeah, I do think it's an issue. I find it interesting though, looking at the over-unders, like there's no team that has more than 50 that's projected to get more than 53 wins. So it's like, I just think every year there's a team that jumps out. Somebody's got to get to 57, 58 wins, I think. So I don't know who that team is going to be.
Golden State could do that. I mean, if Klay Thompson, coming back another year off, another year away from those serious injuries, maybe he's more like himself and he's more consistent. And then, you got Wiggins, who now he's won a championship and now they kind of know how he has to play.
And they're young guys. If their young guys show up.
Right, exactly. So if they do more of that, they could be a team that could win 60 games. We'll see. But, the Celtics, that really concerns me because I just feel like coaching really matters especially for setting a culture. And I just don't know that they're going to have the same. And if they don't have that same thing, they're not the same team. So.
It's true. Yeah, so we'll see. I'm interested to see how they work in Brogdon, how that helps. Because they need help with their offense. So maybe they can do a better job offensively, and maybe that can help them because that was their issue all last year. It wasn't the defense, it was the offense. And so maybe that'll help. All right, how much does a Draymond Green punch really matter?
Well, it's interesting that they re-signed Andrew Wiggins and Jordan Poole. I guess that came out today or yesterday.
And they gave them both extensions, yep.
Yeah, Draymond Green is still – he's on his last year of his contract, right?
Last year, and then he has an option after that, 1 year, a player option for the next year. So he can still come back. But, yeah, reading the figures, it's insane. The Warriors will have, starting in, I think, 23-24 season, they will have almost a $500 million payroll.
I can see some other teams around the league being pissed off about this because essentially the luxury tax was put in there to prevent people from just recklessly spending, and they're just sort of doing that. So, yeah, that is kind of – it's – I mean, look, if you keep winning, I guess it's fine. But, like I said, I was saying this last year, I think the Warriors' title window closes after this year because they're like, oh, they got all these younger players. They're still led by Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green, and if they're not being major contributors, how good is Jordan Poole going to be if he's like one of the main guys? How good is Jonathan Kuminga? We haven't seen him play that much. Who's the other guy? The big guy?
James Wiseman.
Wiseman. He keeps getting hurt.
Right.
So I don't know how you can trust these other guys in a big spot where you would have to trust Steph and the other guys to kind of to figure it out. So Again, I could be wrong, but it is kind of like this, when you're winning, spending all that money's fine, but,
Right. Yeah.
I just think it's I just think it's funny that, like, I especially like I like the Warriors to win just because it pisses Nick Wright off. Because he's never liked the Warriors winning. He always has something bad to say about it. But whatever.
Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah, I think these things, as far as the incident itself, Draymond punching Jordan Poole, I think athletes get over this stuff pretty easily. I don't think this is necessarily the thing that's going to derail them from winning the title this year. But the thing is like, this is what you get with Draymond.
Yeah,
like this is the problem. Like stuff like this happens. And, like the blow up with Kevin Durant in 2019, like, this is the problem is, does this lead to more stuff? I think that's more the issue.
Well, and the thing is, remember, 2019, that thing happened. They still went to the finals and they would have won if Durant didn't get hurt.
Right.
So, I think you can kind of especially if you're winning, you can kind of play through this stuff. But, does it reach a point where they're like, okay, we're sick of Draymond? It's like, I don't know that it does, because there's just part of their team is based on he's a big part of it, the way he plays defense and the way he organizes everything, and you can't just replace that. So
yeah, they're in a tough spot. What do they do after the season? Do they move on? Do they try to trade Draymond? They try to persuade him not to opt in. Like, I don't know how that's going to go. Let's see. How long can the Lakers put up with Russell Westbrook?
Well, the thing is, like, how good are the Lakers going to be if Anthony Davis and LeBron are playing?
They'll be pretty good.
I would think they'd be pretty good. Now, are they a top team in the West? I don't know. But, I mean, if they're playing and they're playing at a high level, they're still really good. So, like I said, if you're winning, I guess you can kind of go along with it and you can put up with it. But if it turns out to be another bad year, then they'll be looking to figure out a way to get him out of there.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of a make or break year with Golden State. We'll see kind of how it goes. But yeah, no, I think I don't understand why the Lakers are allowing this to go on. I don't understand why they're letting Russell Westbrook play in these games. I have no idea. Like, I just think this is a terrible idea. But you know what? Unintentional comedy. Go right ahead, guys. Just continue with your nonsense. I have no idea why they're letting, like, I would have sent him home. I would have bought him out. I would have gotten him out of there. See you later. This idea that they're
good. What I want to know is, where are all the Russell Westbrook defenders the last few years? It kind of seems funny. We're not hearing a lot from them about, and now granted, Russell Westbrook's a Hall of Famer. He'll get into the Hall of Fame. He's one of the most athletic players we've ever seen. But, I mean, guys, it's been this the whole time with Russell Westbrook. Not just the last few years. It's been this the whole time. Okay, it's just, in the past he was more physically, he was younger, so he was, he was faster and whatever else. He was more physically all there. So, yeah, it's just kind of funny. Like, I felt like for so many years there were so many people defending him, and now I don't really hear that as much. A lot of more people are criticizing him. I'm like, well, guys, this was the whole thing, like the whole time. So,
yeah. I mean, is there any team you think has a chance to be like scary good? I mean, obviously, I think the Warriors kind of fit that.
Like I said, the Warriors, maybe Denver. If everybody's there and they're playing and they kind of get back into their thing, maybe they'll be really good. I mean, Jokic won the MVP again, didn't he?
Yeah.
Last year. So, beyond that, I mean, I don't really. Maybe New Orleans.
Yeah.
If Zion is playing, like, they could be pretty damn good, especially the way Brandon Ingram was playing last year. So we'll see.
Yeah, so that kind of leads into the next question. What player are you really excited to watch this year? I mean, I think Zion is pretty high on pretty much everyone's list. Right. Yeah, I mean, I kind of think, like, talking about Zion, I mean, I think this is kind of the make or break year for Zion. I know he signed that extension, but if I don't see it this year, then I'm kind of out. Like, if I don't see it like this year on a consistent basis, like at that point, it's like, dude, like you've had all these chances. Like, when am I going to see it? You know, you got drafted in 2018 or 2019. Like, there's 3 years, man. So yeah, that being said, yeah, I'm really excited to watch New Orleans. I think that could be on any given night. That could be such an incredibly fun team to watch.
Do you care that much about LeBron? He's going to end up breaking, unless he gets seriously injured. We're assuming he's going to break Kareem's points record.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really cool. It's a really cool record to have. You know, I've got the most points ever. Of course, the way the internet works today, everyone will shit on him. But I think it's a really cool. I think that's an awesome record to have. I'm the all-time leading scorer in the NBA. I mean, that's pretty damn
despite
cool.
What some of the haters will say, like Colin Cowherd, I don't care about records. Dude, shut up. Okay, some of these records are cool. And by the way, the players do care about this stuff. I don't care what they say or I don't care what you think. They do give a shit. Brady does give a shit that he basically owns all the significant passing records in the NFL. Okay? I know the NFL isn't necessarily a number sport. And by the way, neither is the NBA really. But players give a shit about this. They give a shit about winning MVPs and all this other stuff. So I don't want to hear this stuff that doesn't matter. You know?
Yeah, LeBron knows how many points he has. He knows how many points he needs in order to get to Kareem. So yeah, I agree with you. That's a really interesting record. All right, let's see. Any other teams that we didn't talk about? Well, I'm sorry. Let's go back to, what players are you looking forward to? Listen, I'm always looking forward to see Luka play. Like, you don't need to sell me on that. That's a done deal. Listen, I think Jokic is awesome to watch play just from a basketball standpoint. Like the stuff that he does is just awesome. Trying to think. I really want to see how Donovan Mitchell does in Cleveland. Really excited about that. Trying to think anybody else that I'm like fascinated by. The tanking this year is going to be fascinating.
Because of Ben Wembanyama?
Yeah.
So who do you think? Well, who do you think's got right now? Who's got the lead in terms of who's got the lead in the clubhouse to get the number one pick?
I think Utah and Oklahoma City are going to be. They're really going to be swinging for it. I think the problem with teams like Orlando and Houston is they have really good young players now. So I think that's just going to cause them to win too many games. Orlando has like 3 or 4 like top 10 picks on their team. Like they're just, I just think those teams are just going to win. And Detroit too. They have Cade Cunningham and they just drafted that Jaden Ivey kid. So I just think those teams are just going to they're going to try too hard. So I think, I really think Oklahoma City, because Chet Holmgren's out for the year or whatever, I think, and Utah is obviously tanking. I think that those, and San Antonio.
So they drafted Chet Holmgren. They could get this other guy too.
Yeah.
It's going to be the Oklahoma City Giants. Like, good Lord.
Yeah, they have Chet Holmgren. They still have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And, I'm trying to, and they got Josh Giddey. Like, they have all the guys that they've drafted the past couple years, but and honestly, like, if you're in the bottom 6, like, that's really, the bottom 3, you get the same odds to get the number 1 pick. But if you're in the bottom 6, you have like really good odds to get one of the top 2 picks. So that's really what it's going to be. You don't really, like, the way they change the rules and the way the teams are now, like, you're not really going to have to go crazy all you have to be is in the bottom 6.
Right.
And you have a really good shot. And then plus there's the other guy, the point guard, Scoot Henderson. Like, he's unbelievable too. So whoever gets the number 2 pick is going to be fine with it. They're not going to be upset, So it's not one guy that you're tanking for. There's 4 or 5 guys in this draft that are legit, that guys would all want. So I don't think it's going to be, I think when it gets to March and April, you might see some shady stuff. But for the most part, like, no matter how hard Orlando tries, they're not going to win more than 30 games. Right. So, but I think it's going to be something to keep your eye on. Like, you're going to get, I do think somebody, like the Lakers maybe, is going to get a bunch of wins in the second half of the season, and they're going to be kind of fraudulent.
Yeah.
I do see that happening. But let's see. Any other, let's see. As far as players, I think we kind of named, kind of went through all the ones that that we love to watch. Do you think the Phoenix Suns, is that going to be like a real problem for them, the DeAndre Ayton situation, or do you think? My personal feeling is I think they're going to win a lot of games anyway. I don't think it matters that much.
Yeah, but I do wonder if they're, it's the same problem as last year. And like I said, I had said last year, like their title window closes after this year. I don't think they can win the championship again because I just think you're going to get later. Chris Paul's going to play a bunch of games and he may get hurt or something. And especially he may get hurt in the playoffs. And I just don't think they have enough. In terms of DeAndre Ayton and even Booker, I just don't think they have enough to kind of overcome that if Chris Paul's being guarded by people and you just can't do anything. So,
yeah, I think it could be. I mean, we'll see how it goes with them trying to sell the team. Does that affect, how they're able to operate? And again, they really need to rest Chris Paul and find a way to get a backup point guard, to rest him some games because he just gets worn out every year. So it just feels like that's inevitable for that to keep happening. All right. Yeah. I mean, that's all I really had. I mean, are you just as simple as the Warriors Bucks finals, or do you feel like,
I mean, I guess that's probably what I would predict at this point. But yeah, I mean, there's somewhat like Denver has a chance at it. The Clippers sort of, and then I guess you could maybe Brooklyn or Philadelphia. Beyond that, I don't know. I mean, weird stuff could happen, but I don't see the Heat being able to make a run past like the second round or even the first round. It depends where the seeding is, So I just, the NBA is usually one of the more predictable sports, barring injury. So,
right.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been Warriors Bucks last year if Chris Middleton didn't get hurt. So,
yeah, I think for Philadelphia, it's nice they don't have to go into the season with the whole Ben Simmons thing hanging over them. I think that's a nice benefit to this year. So we'll see how it goes. I think their new additions could really help them though. They got PJ Tucker and Daniel House. I think,
right.
I think that's the kind of stuff that they needed. So yeah, I'm definitely, but I've been rooting for Philadelphia for 4 years and they always disappoint me. So,
right.
Anyway, yeah, that's our NBA preview. So, anything else before we go?
No, I don't think so. I'm excited about. I keep seeing commercials for the World Cup. So we're about a month away. So I'm excited.
Yep. Yeah, that's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Enjoy your football. We know we will, and we'll see you guys next week.